our president told us that we're working with Iran and we're going to have peace in our time. And everybody likes the idea of peace because they don't equate peace with North Korea or Iran, for that matter, because they have peace there. China, they do. They just don't have liberty, freedom. They don't have a culture that's based on a Judeo-Christian foundation. But I digress. Here is part one of what the foreign minister said last night regarding and it wasn't to Fareed Zakaria, pardon me, to the CNN reporter, regarding the Iranian nuke deal with us, the United States. Roll it.
The White House version both underplays the concessions and overplays Iranian commitments. And I'm not interested in that. I'm simply saying, why don't we all stick to what we agreed? Why do we need to produce different texts?
And then wanted a little more, because what do you mean? What do you mean? What's so different about what's going on here? With the president insisted and has put out on a fact sheet that talks about dismantlement, yet the foreign minister says no dismantling. Roll it.
Well, the terminology is different. The White House tries to portray it as basically a dismantling of Iran's nuclear program. That is the word that they use time and again. And I urge you to read the entire text. If you find a single word that even closely resembles dismantling, or could be defined as dismantling in the entire text, then I would take back my comment.
So what is it Iran doing?
On foot, Iran? No. What the text, what Iran has agreed is not to enrich above 5%. We did not agree to dismantle anything.
So they can still enrich up to 5%. That has its own problems and issues because they can accelerate the process after that. Let me ask you this, Aaron. When you hear this news, first question, did this surprise you?
Well, it didn't surprise me the fact that over the last several months, we have been giving in to Iran in lots of fronts. And so it just seems that we're going along with the playbook here, Crane, that we're not going to dismantle. We're going to continue to enrich, and America is going to turn a blind eye to our enrichment. And I truly believe that's what's happening, and that's what will eventually happen, is that they will go nuclear and produce the bomb.
Okay. What about those, because I've talked to them over the years, decade plus, where they say, what right do we have as Americans to tell Iran they can't pursue nuclear energy? And for that matter, nuclear weapons, isn't that overstepping our role and our bounds?
Well, not when you think of the philosophy of radical Muslims. For example, United States and Russia, hopefully will never fire upon one another because both countries believe in this principle called mutually assured destruction, that they know that if they fire on us, that we'll fire back and there'll be a lot of bloodshed. And so, Russians, for the most part, value their lives. But when it comes to radical Islam, the Iranians, they do not value life. They're not really concerned about mutually assured destruction. And they've made so many threats to wipe Israel off the map, and they're looking towards fulfilling the 12th Imam's mission to create chaos on the earth. And so, Crane, you and I the last couple of years have said that a nuclear Iran is a game changer, not just in the Middle East, but for all the nations of the world. And somehow our nation has come to disbelieve in that, where they truly believed that, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. But today they believe that a nuclear Iran does not pose a threat to the world, but somehow they're overlooking the religion of radical Islam.
And again, when we overlook that, I guess it is our idea to ascribe the values that we have to others and not recognizing what a culture is based on. And we really need to examine that, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely. That these people in Iran, they don't hold the same Judeo-Christian values that we hold to in the Western world, in the United States. Their value system is completely different. That's why a person of the religion of Islam, and I would say radical Islam, they have no problem of walking into a crowded restaurant or a crowded marketplace, knowing that not only are they going to commit suicide themselves, but they're going to kill both Christian, Muslim, atheist. They have no regard for human life. Even if it's taking a Muslim's life, they couldn't care less. And so that's why it's very dangerous for these people to hold nuclear power, because they don't have the same value system. They don't value life as we value life.
What concerns me, Aaron, is we have a war-weary United States where we haven't had the articulation of what we are fighting for on the fronts, or fought for on the fronts in Iraq and Afghanistan. We have talked about ending wars, not realizing that wars don't end. They're either fought to stalemates, one eventually loses and one eventually wins, but there's no just ending the war. And I'm not going down that road. I'm just making a general point, because that goes into the fact of, hey, we're not the world's policemen, and can't everybody just get along? Where this inevitably yields to, and I'll accelerate to my point and actually jump to it, what I see happening is, as bizarre as this is, and quite frankly, an absolutely asinine interpretation, pardon me, but that's what it would be. But Israel's going to be blamed for Iran's provocations, because they're going to have to take action. It's in their neighborhood. And bottom line, this is going to turn into tell me, and by the way, I don't say this saying wishing it. I say this with just very sadness and frustration and even anger that this is even going to be said, but they're going to blame it on the Jews. Mm-hmm. And I see that happening because what I see is, look, we just don't want to deal, and why are we taking the time to defend? I mean, who's really going to get nailed by this? It's if we just get out of there and we buy into that, which is not true, by the way. I'm not accepting any of the things I'm saying as true. I'm saying this is the perception. This is what happens when we don't have leadership and we don't understand what our role is in the world. But not only that, we don't understand our number one ally is facing the same threat. We are one and the same when we're dealing with threats. And certainly, as Christians, we recognize what Israel is. And either we believe the Bible or we don't. But bottom line, that's going to come around. It's going to be blame Israel. And that makes me sick. Do you think that's an overstatement? Do you think that it's just way out there? Like, Crane, you're a little conspiratorial. Why don't you get your tinfoil hat? I know you love Israel, but I mean, come on. They're not going to start blaming it. It's ridiculous. Go ahead.
Well, they already have. Every time Israel defends itself, as they have against Hamas, Hezbollah, whenever they step out to defend themselves, Crane, they're blamed. And in this case, if and when they take out Iran's nuclear capability and it causes bloodshed or it opens up a can of worms in the region, Israel will be blamed. And I was thinking today how to illustrate that. And I remember when I was in middle school, Crane, there was a bully. And this bully was always picking on kids. And I forget how it happened, but I think maybe in a football game or something, he broke his leg. So he's hobbling around school on crutches. And during, our walks to class, he would take his crutch and he would hit the little kids over the heads and in the backs. He was just a mean kid. And I watched this and I said to myself, if I tell this kid to stop and I try to take his crutch away, he's probably going to fall, but I'll save the little kids from being harmed, but I'll go down in history in this school as a kid who, picked on a guy that had a crutch.
Mm-hmm.
And so what did I do, Crane? I went up to him and I said, you shouldn't hit children with this crutch. And, of course, he took the crutch, hit me over the head. And when I went to grab the crutch, he took a few steps back. He didn't fall, but all the kids standing in the circle pointed their finger at me and said, Aaron is the guy that picks on the handicapped kid. He wasn't handicapped. He'd suffered a broken leg. He was healing up. But the point is, Israel, they're going to have to defend themselves from the bully in the region, and the rest of the nations will point a finger, and it says this in the book of Zechariah, that all the nations of the earth will rise up against Israel in the last days. And I think, just as you have said, Crane, I think mainly it will be because of the extent they will have to go to defend themselves against Iran.
And in defending themselves, they're actually defending us and dealing with that threat. And that's why it's so important that we pray for our leaders, for them to have a clear eye, a clear lens when it comes to addressing these issues. And obviously, I would argue a biblical lens and understanding the difference between good and evil. Because when you start treating a player in the negotiation and you ignore the atrocities they're committing and put them on the same moral plane as the people that are being victimized and say, why don't you all just get along? Well, isn't that what you referred to as calling good evil and evil good?
Absolutely. And again, oftentimes journalists, different world leaders will try to put Hamas, Iran, on the same moral level as the Jewish nation, the Israeli people. And you just can't do that. In the same way you wouldn't have put the Nazis on the same level as the victims of the Holocaust. But yet, time and time again, the Jews are blamed for atrocities that they've never committed.
And that's where we are today in understanding. So obviously we will continue to pray for our leaders, and we will pray for Israel's leadership. And we should make it clear that we stand with Israel and have that opportunity. We've talked about within our own Christian community, there is a insidious movement, and to say the least, I guess that would be an understatement, that is actually part of replacement theology. I don't want to go all into it, but tell me, when we think about the attacks that are coming toward Israel, you mentioned that this is pointed out in Scripture. This is all coming to pass, is it not?
It is, and I really never believed possible that I would see this in my lifetime, Crane, that all the nations, including the United States, and it's almost as if we are leading the charge now against the Israeli people. And so it's very concerning. Never thought I would see it with my own eyes in my lifetime, but Bible prophecy is being fulfilled right before our very eyes.
Sanctity of Life special, that will be at the top of the hour, but before we get to that, we have another segment with our good friend, Pastor Aaron Fruh, in which we will talk about life, the sanctity of life, the importance of honoring those and protecting those and advocating for those in the womb, but also those who have been born, who are living, even those who are not walking with Christ as we speak. Our obligation to our fellow man and the understanding of what it means to recognize God as our creator and his stamp on our lives. The sacred is the life of the child is the special that's coming up on the flip side of the show. Normally we go to 7:30 Eastern, 6:30 Central, but tonight we have the blessing of Ray Pritchard's special, Sacred is the Life of a Child. Ron Burgundy, please read it. Sacred is the life of a child. Thank you. And it is something that I would encourage you strongly to lock in and listen to. When Dr. Ray Pritchard is dedicating his time to getting a word out, it is a must listen. So, Sacred is the life of a child. Dr. Ray Pritchard at the top of the hour, but before that, our good friend Pastor Aaron Fruh continues with us. If you're looking for more information on what Aaron has spoken of regarding Israel, 2 Minute Warning is the name of his book. I will post it up on the Facebook. AFR Talk.